All right, UFC Vegas 45, Amanda Lemos versus Angela Hill in the women's strawweight division. Our question to you guys for this fight. Lemos in her last four fights has three first round finishes, and Angela Hill has not been finished in a fight since March of 2019. If Lemos wins, does she wrap it up quick? Does Hill pull off an upset? Or does she lose but by decision? I think, if Lemos can have another impressive finish like that, it's going to make that Sterling record look that much better because Hill's been around for quite some time. What I was actually just mentioning before we were rolling was she's in the top 10 among all UFC fighters, men or women, in UFC history in significant strikes landed, Angela Hill, which completely blew my mind.
Yeah, that blows my mind too, man.
So that's kind of our question to you guys. What do you think? What do I think? I don't know if the first round streak continues because Angela Hill is tough. Don't let that record indicate otherwise. She's not an easy customer to put away, as again, it's been nearly 3 years since she has been finished. She has lost since then, but just hasn't been finished. Now, do I think Lemos can finish her? For sure. I just don't know if it'll be as quickly as she's been able to do in, like we said, 3 of the last 4. So my answer to that will be no on the first rounders, but maybe a later round finish. Maybe like round 3 finish for Lemos. I think she just ends up. I think she wears Hill down. Is how I feel. How about you?
I think I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't see a first round finish either, for all the reasons that you laid out, especially considering that, Hill's going to be expecting Lemos to go for that first round finish. I would assume that she's preparing to not let herself get put in a position where she gets ragdolled. But Lemos is very dominant when it comes to grappling. She's not a joke. So you never know. But I would tend to agree with you. I think second, third round is where we would see a finish if we were to see one.
Yeah. I mean, if we kind of look at, again, we mentioned it 3 of the 4, but if you kind of take a little further look into each of these women, so 10-1-1 for Lemos. The one thing I want to highlight before we even go any lower here. So of those 10 wins, this is what's, for any women's fighter, this is what's always big to see. 10 wins, 9 finishes. A lot of women, they're going to decision. But if of your wins, you have a 90% finish rate for anyone, that's phenomenal. So that's one big thing to highlight right off the bat there. Now we're looking at the 4 fights here. She's won 4 in a row. 3 of those 4 were finishes. Her loss in the beginning there, before the 4-fight streak, was, I believe, her UFC debut, if I'm not mistaken, and that was 4.5 years ago now. Yeah, I think there you go. That was her UFC debut. Leslie Smith, I don't think is even the UFC anymore. So there you go. Now, I don't know what happened there where we have a 2.5-year layoff. I won't pretend I do. But since then, since December of 2019, we've seen Lemos 4 times in the octagon. This is going to be her 5th. So you like to see activity. 3rd fight this year, especially strawweights, when you have the likes of Rose up there, the likes of Carla Esparza up there, the likes of Weili up there. It's good to be active to try and get yourself going somewhere there. So, and she's, Montserrat Conejo is not a bad opponent there. To have been able to beat in 35 seconds is pretty impressive there for Lemos. What do you kind of see when you look at? We've seen her fight again a few times this year. What are your takeaways with her?
Yeah, I first saw her fight against Mizuki Inoue. I believe we were in Vegas at that time, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and that kind of blew me away because I had picked Mizuki as my pick, obviously. So to see Lemos do what she did over the course of 3 rounds, it wasn't a finish, obviously, but I was still impressed. And post that, I pretty much would just ride her anytime I saw her come up on any of these cards. And to your point, yeah, I mean, Conejo is not a joke. Souza is not a joke either. Ed, I mean, is not really a joke either, but it didn't really go her way. So yeah, I mean, I think this will be a good test for Lemos. I think going up against Hill will be very indicative of her trajectory in the UFC.
I agree because and we can pan over now to Hill's last few because again the 13 and 10 on paper looks pretty ugly. It's on the surface you don't like how that looks. Tisha Torres, she was pretty thoroughly handled with that last fight. I if I'm not mistaken, actually I had taken Hill on some of my picks on some of my parlays and at least one for sure, and it was just a very disappointing performance. And that was their rematch, and they were talking back and forth during the press conference. And if you're gonna talk, you better come out and do something. So conversely, this is funny. So you had 4 straight wins for Lemos. 3 of the 4 are first round finishes. For Hill, you have 3 of her four last fights are losses. The Watterson one was maybe debatable from what I'm remembering. I think I had Hill on my scorecards for that one, and that was actually a fairly entertaining fight. Yeah, so the numbers are fairly close there. Control time is a little bit different, but you have 1 for 18 on takedown attempts. I had this on my cards. I had it for Hill.
To your point earlier, look at these strike numbers, man.
Yeah.
That's insane. We don't see that other men's fights. So she has some output. That is ridiculous.
Yeah. So that's why I do think it's a good test, like you were saying, for Lemos. Definitely her biggest name that she's fought so far. I would even argue maybe the toughest test. Again, it might not look it on the record sheet, but she's been fighting for quite some time, Angela Hill. She's got a lot of experience. I don't think she's necessarily going to be an easy first round out. I would be surprised if Hill wins. So I guess that kind of segues us to what we think is going to happen. Yeah, I do expect Lemos to win this. And I would be surprised if Hill won. Now, minus 400. Again, if you have a parlay, you're confident in Lemos, you have a 3-leg, you want to maybe add a little bit more change to it. Yeah, I think it's safe to throw Lemos in there. But 400 is a little too rich for me.
Yeah.
I think 300 is maybe a little more appropriate. Because again, at 300, you're at around plus 210 maybe for the underdog. And like I was saying in the other video, around plus 200 if you win, I'm kind of like, oh wow, okay, wasn't expecting that. I don't expect to win for Hill, but plus 310 is kind of disrespectful, I think, for what we've seen ability wise from Hill.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. The line is set way too wide for my taste. I think, yeah, if we knocked it down to maybe -3 and set Hill at plus 210, that would probably be more appropriate. But to your point, even earlier in this video, I don't know, man. Hill's never been knocked out. So you're basically setting the line here because you're thinking Lemos is going to go in there and take care of her. That's a fairly confident assessment considering her opponent has never been knocked out. So
He finished twice.
Yeah, so this is kind of I will stay away from this one. I'm not going to touch it, but if I had to pick, I would pick Lemos. Specifically because I just think she's a more dominant fighter. I think the pressure is going to be good. She's going to do what she does. But I think ultimately Lemos is probably going to get, if not I don't know. I don't want to say not a knockout because I don't think that's going to happen, but potentially a sub might occur. And I mean, Lemos is a striker, but she does have ground potential. So I think if she's being coached properly, she might want to have that taken down to the ground to negate Hill's ability to just swing and swing and swing and swing and swing. Because if you're going to go in there and trade with her, I don't know if you're going to make it out.
Yeah, I mean, we have it pulled up right there. You see, this is high volume output for any fighter, man or woman. I mean, over 6 strikes per minute landed for Lemos, and for Angela Hill, it's over 5 landed per minute. So it's high volume by both ladies. So if Angela Hill were to ever be knocked out, I think Lemos is a pretty good contender to maybe be the first person to do it. I don't know. Again, like we mentioned the other one, we couldn't find over-under on rounds. Given that Hill has never been knocked out and she's only been finished twice, you wonder, is it going to be set at 2.5 or 1.5? And if it's 2.5, I would imagine maybe the under is going to be the favorite because it's going to coincide with the fact that they have Lemos so heavy at minus 400. So maybe 1.5 might be too low for Vegas. 2.5 is probably where they'll have it set, I would assume. And I would say the under would be maybe at least like minus 150, something like that. Because most women's fights are set at 2.5, and the over is like always at least like minus 250, something crazy like that. But they got to factor the fact that Lemos is finishing people. And then they also have to balance the fact that Angela doesn't get finished. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see there. That might be more of a value play versus picking an outright winner.
Yes,
I think it makes more sense to play the rounds on this one versus picking an outright victor.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, and I was also going to point out that if you're gonna mess with this match, play the rounds. The money line is kind of scary on this.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of wrap it up there. So we both said Lemos. So if it were to be set at 2.5. That's tricky, man, because I can see this ending in the third, but which side of the third? Are we on the earlier side of the third or the latter side of the third? I'll say Lemos on the under if it ends up being 2.5.
Yeah, I think I'm confident in that one too. Lemos on the under. Because, well, here's my logic there. Because if Lemos gets into that third round where we haven't really seen her that often except for 2020, so at this point a year, not a half, but like a year and maybe, I can't do math right now, 3 quarters ago. So we haven't really seen her leave the first. We don't know if her conditioning is going to have held up, whereas Hill is just back to back to back to back. She just had a 5-round against Watterson, so we know she's got the endurance, she can make it. So if there's going to be a finish, I would also say that it would be under, or 2.5. I would take the under, and in the earlier half of the third.
Yeah, we'll see. So I mean, let us know again with the initial question to you guys. Does that streak of early finishes, first round finishes for Lemos continue? 3 of the last 4 have been like that. Conversely, Hill's never been knocked out. She's only been finished twice. Does Hill somehow pull off an upset here? Or does Lemos just kind of continue this pretty impressive role that she's been on? And anything else in between, let us know. If we're wrong, why are we wrong?
Why are we casuals?
Yeah. How casual were we? Did our casual feathers shine? I think maybe we score some brownie points for knowing that Hill is top 10 in UFC significant strike history. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm like you were saying before we started, I'm actually pretty looking forward to this matchup. Can't always say that with the women's matchups, but this one I'm pretty